What we're going to be talking about today is what I believe to be the truth about God, where we come from, our Creator, the various gods of the Hebrew Bible, and different thoughts on cosmology, on multiple planes of existence, multiple realities, and thoughts on the afterlife. First of all, my entire life I've been of the Christian faith. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. Later went through studying the Pentecostal and Assembly of God churches as a teenager and early 20s. Since then, have gone on to study many different philosophies, religions, religious studies, and different belief systems. I wanted to know a little bit about the culture of people, why they believe what they believe, and what it is exactly they do believe. Most of this stuff comes from ancient manuscripts in time, and I wanted to know what manuscripts they were. Where did they reference this information? What is it that was so compelling about those particular manuscripts that made people want to change their entire, thought and belief system, and possibly even their faith, right? Their entire faith. So this is a touchy subject, and it's a touchy subject for a lot of people because in truth, it's like, man, if you think the wrong thing, you might be condemning your soul to hell, right? I understand that. It's a hard one. It's a very hard uh, position to be in when you believe that your words could be what could be condemning someone's eternal soul to a place that may not have been where they anticipated, right? So, look, under the Christian belief system, we're not supposed to ever say anything other than what's in that Bible. Anything added to or taken from is against the Bible, right? Now, is it against God? Because I don't think God is the one that said that in the Bible. I believe that was another man that wrote that to tell us not to do that. And do your own research. You see who the writer of that book was. And, if it was God that said it, and it wasn't. Okay. So, who is God? What is this God thing? Where do we come from? What is uh, cosmogony, and the deities that we're talking about here? What is the truth behind all of this stuff? Here's the thing, guys. In the Hebrew Bible, there's been a whole lot of changes, a whole lot of different edits and redactions. And what we know is the word that was used for God, right, or gods, was Elohim. Uh, Elohim is a plural masculine term. This is not a singular term for one single almighty deity. What I propose is that this was an actual race of beings, okay, a supreme race of beings that were here on this earth that each commanded a different segment of our world, right? The Elohim of the Hebrew and Israel people were or was Yahweh. We the only mention we really have on that is when Moses asked the Elohim, you know, uh, the particular Elohim that he was speaking to, who are you? And he says, I am what I am. And then he turns around and says, tell them that I am the Elohim of these people, the Elohim of these people, the Elohim of these people, right? Uh, was it Jacob, Abraham, and something? I'm not sure exactly which one. The point is he was the Elohim over that one, or over those people in that group. He says my name, or his name was Yahweh. Now that is a tetragrammaton, which is a four consonant letters put into a word. The Masoretic Hebrew text, it was what we originally get that from, did not use vowels. That particular version of Hebrew didn't use vowels at all. There were different dialects from different areas, and you could kind of insert your vowel, as to whatever was appropriate for your area. And through that type of translation, we lose what the actual pronunciation of the divine name of this particular Elohim. Now, we do know that there's multiple Elohim that are mentioned in the Bible, right? Just as early as Genesis, I believe one really, he was talking about they're made in our image, right? In our image. Let us not make them, more powerful than us, right? When they're, creating man. That's another part. When we look at creating man, it was creating Adamu, right, which was mankind, not a specific one person. How did these things in translations get mixed up? Look, throughout time, there's been all kinds of problems and changes. That's for a whole nother time. My belief system is this: the words that were used were to describe not an all-powerful, almighty God. I do believe that was the intention. I believe the intention was to document the Lord, the supreme being of that area that they happened to be talking about, and there were multiple Elohim mentioned. Now, this particular Elohim, Yahweh, which was the God of the Hebrew people, uh, does multiple things. Now, he has conversations with other Elohim in the Bible. Right? It depends on what version you're looking at. If you're reading the American translations specifically without any context of anything else, a lot of those words are taken out and just replaced with God or Lord. And that's not the word that was used in the original texts. And when I say original text, I'm speaking about the earliest known Masoretic Hebrew texts, right? If we go back further than that, we look at these same stories that date back 36,000 years prior in documents like the Enuma Elish. The Enuma Elish is the 7 tablets of creation that were date 36,000 years, before this ago, right? So in modern Christianity, we believe that the whole world is only 6,000 years old. Well, that's because that's when our history of this begins. The Sumerian history is about 6,000 years old. Now, the stories in those writings come from documentation that we know is at least 36,000 years old. So, knowing that, we're able to fill in a lot of the gaps. We're able to fill in a lot of the holes of the teachings that we just didn't have before. I don't believe that we're now adding anything to or taking anything from the actual Word of God. I think what we're doing is completing the historic story, right? The actual accurate documentation of who the Elohim are, what they were doing here, and what part they play in our own creation story. Now, as far as our creation story, it is not so much the Elohim that created us in total. However, check this out. This is what I believe. I believe the Elohim, right, also known as the Anunnaki in the Mesopotamian manuscripts, were a group of beings from another planet who came here to mine resources and resources, minerals, things like that our planet has, and to study, just like we do when we go on space missions to asteroids, comets, planets, and what have you. We always mine, we look for life forms, we study these things. That's what we do. I believe that's just what any other civilization would do. There were according to the Enuma Elish, there was a group of people here already, a group of hominids here on the earth that were very primitive. Now, to me, this is very simple to explain. We've seen the evolution of man. That's been documented. We can see the skeletons and the remnants of these beings as they've progressed through time. Gone from the hunched over monkey body all the way up to the, Homo erectus or what have you, that's similar to us, but still very Sasquatchian, right? And then all of a sudden, there's us. All of a sudden, there's us. That's it. That doesn't make sense. For decades, we've called this the missing link. We're searching for the missing link. When we go back and look at these manuscripts, they give tell of the missing link. There's not, the evolutionary period stopped there. Okay, there's no longer a progression of man in that state. What those documents state is that the Anunnaki or the Elohim, right, tampered with our DNA or with the DNA of the hominids that were here on Earth. And by doing that, they created a slave race. Biblically, when the Elohim have this conversation, that's when they're discussing how powerful to make them and whether they need to be more powerful or less powerful than the Agili, which is another created being, also known as angels, right, in the Bible. So these are created beings, or Nephilim, and we'll go there too, right? What's the difference between the angels and the Nephilim? Well, it depends on which side of the story you were, that you believe in. The classic story of Christianity is the story between God and Satan, right? The evil and the good, the just and the unjust. When we go back to these ancient Mesopotamian articles and Sumerian scripts, we come across the brothers, the two Enki and Enlil, the two Elohim or Anunnaki, right? Who happen to be kind of commanding things. Now, the way I look at this group of people, uh, first of all, we know that we are in their likeness according to all manuscripts, whether it be Hebrew, with Sumerian, Mesopotamian, or what have you. All of these creation stories go back to saying that same thing, right? We are created to look like them somewhat, somewhat in their image. Now, when we go to the biblical text, that's where it says, hey, the mixing of their DNA with the hominids from here just shortened the lifespan to 120 years, right? Now, supposedly that's because that angered, uh, you know, Yahweh, which is the name of the particular Elohim, the Elohah of the Hebrew people. So let's break that down. Now originally when we look through these original texts, the words used for God or gods were Elohim. You have Elohim, and Elohah. Um, Elohim is the plural masculine uh, pronunciation for this term. Elohah would be the singular or the singular masculine, and El would be the singular, the singular noun of a group. So, where then do we get this monotheistic belief of this one single God that's talked about throughout biblical, biblical writings? I believe that's two different entities that we're talking about. Yes, this world is of intelligent design. Okay. I do believe that. When I say intelligent design, I mean that this is a created world, right? Let's see here. Hang on. My live stream is performancing, experiencing, what have you. Okay. When I say created world, that's exactly what it says. God created the heavens and the earth, right? Okay. If you believe that, then what you must be saying is that we live in a created universe. This is not the base reality. Okay. Keep that in mind. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm saying it's not the base reality. There is a reality, a dimension of being that exists outside of this one. We know that if we believe that this outside entity created and designed everything that is in the universe here, that means that the universe that we live in itself is a creation. Okay. Let's move that into modern terms. Look, we live in the matrix. That's what that is. We live in the matrix. This is the digital world that is created, and we happen to have a digital consciousness. Now, one thing that we do know is mathematics is the language of our universe, right? We understand all communication through mathematics, through numbers, through the zeros and the ones. Could that be because of the syntax of our matrix? Look, that's the code, man. It's the language that our matrix is written in. It is a numerical formula. Numbers and letters, which we've come out to crack. Now, what the external language that looks like, I don't know. Just like we speak a verbal language here, I'm speaking English to you guys, or at least an American version of English, and you guys hear it in whatever it is. However, the written code of this would have been in zeros and ones, or what have you, or code language, whether it be JavaScript, Python, or whatever it is, CS, whatever. There's multiple languages of scripts. So what I think is that we have, this universe does have a coder, a creator, right? However, and don't get me wrong, if you're going to pray to somebody, that's the one. It's the creator. That's the omnipotent, the one that knows every hair on your head. It's the writer of your book. That's also how life is, or how all time is simultaneous, from beginning to present to end, right? It's all simultaneous. It's already been written. It is contained within the matrix. It's all part of the programming. There's a million possibilities, and you will go through and make those choices, and there's thousands of avenues that it can happen. That's part of the mathematic reality of this, or the mathematic nature of this reality. So, moving past that, let's just get on past that. What I'm trying to get at, the God spoke in the Bible most of the time was a singular monotheistic concept that was replacing the word Elohim. Elohim being uh, a plural term for a race of beings. Now that really fills in a lot of the holes. You know, you say in the Old Testament we had a vengeful, wrathful God, but in the New Testament he's a loving, wonderful God. That doesn't make any sense, especially if you buy into the whole thought process of he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Um, how does one Elohim have an argument with another one and say, hey, don't worship that Elohim, worship this Elohim. Don't have any other Elohim above me. Now, by the way, he's not saying they aren't real. He's saying they're not Elohim. He says, we are all Elohim, but don't worship him, worship me. My name's Yahweh. Okay, you worship me. I'm your God, right? What I believe this is this is a highly advanced, group of people who came here doing whatever it is that they did, right? Because we were a very primitive race, we looked at them as deities, and we may have confused them with our creator God. All I'm saying is that entity is not the creator. Okay, there is a creator. That's just not the one. Yahweh, the Yahweh of the Bible, was an Elohim, one of the Anunnaki. And Anunnakis were a group of people, or a group of beings who came here to, well, what we know is they came here to mine for resources and minerals. I'm sure there was a lot of other things that happened, such as genetic manipulation of the hominids that were here, creating the actual human being, the Homo sapien that we are today. According to the Mesopotamian writings, they genetically mixed their own DNA with that of the hominids that were here to create us, right? And how did they say they did that? That part was genetic manipulation. Then put that seed into the body of that hominid. That was it had to be born that way, right? It had to be born into the world. Now, this would have been born to a virgin birth. This was not a sexual exchange. This was a genetic exchange of material. This was taking the zygote of this group and this group together and implanting it into a female woman. Now, modern times we'd say, hey, sounds like alien abduction, sounds like implants and probing. Ta-da! Hey, ding, 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 man. I'm not coming up with anything new here. This is nothing new under the sun. I'm just trying to get you to wrap your mind around what you've been told may have not been exactly right the entire time. Now, I'm not saying anything about don't believe God. God's out there. I worship and pray to him every day. And I don't want you to change that either. But understand that the words that you've been reading in the Bible were not necessarily exactly what you've been taught, right? I think once you understand full context, it helps understand more of where we come from, right? The way this stuff works. The biggest teaching today is understanding that the word God or Lord in our Hebrew Bible was not always referencing a singular monotheistic entity. Okay. There was multiple. That was the group of Elohim that we speak of. On the next video, I will be coming to you. I've got a full list of the list of the names of the multiple Anunnaki that were commanders over our Earth, right? As well as the names in the Sumerian text that were used in the Mesopotamian to connect those same entities, so that you're more familiar with those beings. Just like Noah, right? Everybody knows the story of Noah and the Ark, right? Or Noah's Ark. Look, man, the the Enuma Elish talks about the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? Same story, whole different guy, 30,000 years earlier, right? Okay. Some of this stuff we have to understand was the names and locations may have been changed a little. Let's dig for the earliest version possible, see what they said, and how does that correspond with the modern translations. That's what this is about. That's why I've got you guys watching today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back to you soon.